In our industry, we are the center of the story is the image of the star. The films which I do in Hollywood, there the center is the story, the power of the story. You can take anybody, from Tom Hanks to everybody, all the big stars, they are serving the purpose of the story, not the image of the star.
When I posted the Munjia movie review recently, a comment by Digvijay really stuck with me. He stated that it's high time Bollywood stops romanticizing every movie, especially of the horror genre. No need of the forced love affair when you have a brilliant story to put forward and bring out its potential, just for the sake of songs and a heroine literally distracting the actual plot of the movie. Stories like Munjia can dig deep into the origins of evil and future potentials to establish itself as a movie series or universe. Even if you don't want to make it, at least it won't make the movie forgettable. This made me think about why the makers of films, especially high concept ones, feel compelled to dumb down interesting narratives in films, almost with the assumption that the Indian audience needs the fluff versus an engaging storyline. When I speak to anyone well versed with the folklore of Munjia, they tell me it's far more terrifying than just a horny little kid ogling at women even in the afterlife because he could not marry his one true love. The fear of dying alone, the obsession that creeps in with individuals, and the eerie backdrop of the Konkan coast can develop far more horrifying themes versus the need for the makers to navigate commercial elements like dance numbers, romantic subplots, or throwaway gags. This made me think about why the genre of sci-fi is essentially barren in Hindi cinema, and when it is attempted, why it always seems to disappoint us. Is it because the makers constantly fight the idea of what the film is versus what is most commercially viable, or we just don't have the creative and financial bandwidth to have our own Dune, Star Wars, Interstellar, or Avatar? Let's discuss a few examples and what possibly went wrong with these films and what seems to be the balance that has been cracked only by one director in Hindi cinema, Brahmastra. I think we have countless number of times discussed what was the biggest failing of Brahmastra, but I think what was the most heartbreaking element of watching this film was the expectations we consumed ourselves with. Seeing the marketing snippets of the film and the dumbed down simplistic version of the storyline that we got. I mean, after everything, if you tell me that it's the power of love that supersedes everything, it's almost as if Ayan Mukherjee all of our wild imaginations and gave us the most textbook kids book resolution. I think beyond the dialogues and romance, which were the huge demerits to the screenplay of the film, it was the lack of purpose with Alia Bhatt's character, her sole contribution being shouting Shiva's name that really bummed people out.
Shiva. Kya hua Shiva?
The lost potential with the exceptional characters played by Nagarjuna and Shah Rukh Khan, the constant stalling by Amitabh Bachchan, and the rushed exposition of Shiva's past. It all eventually became a tiring mess. A deep dive on the world of the Astras with a laser-focused approach on Shiva's origin story and a face-off against the ultimate boss is the cliffhanger we wanted. But we got a spiel of light roshni hai aur pyar ki aag that really made us feel we got shortchanged by a movie which had so much more potential.
प्यार से खूबसूरत कुछ भी नहीं है इस दुनिया में. Wow.
Ravan. Another film that I believe many film fans, especially cinema enthusiasts who love superhero films, were rooting for was Ravan. While its revisionism with the terrible product that we saw in the form of Adipurush is something that we have actively discussed, a case of nostalgia overpowering objective analysis, but Ravan as a holistic product is nothing short of frustrating. It's this need for the makers to be anything and everything versus an unapologetic superhero film that really brings the quality of the movie down. You had everything from forced and uninformed Tamil slang, a terrible Shah Rukh Khan wig, Satish Shah humping the air, Kareena Kapoor doing a thesis on Punjabi gali,
तेरे बाप का भोचा तेरे ताऊ का पोड़ा.
and a game that just did not seem practical enough to be a smash hit. Inundated with unnecessary gags and possibly the worst cameo of a legend, this superhero film had so much potential to be a good versus evil Ramayan face-off in the modern age, but became a slapstick comedy with dispersed action, and the highlight being that Akon has better Hindi pronunciation than most that reside in South Bombay. Rudraksh. On paper, if I told you the storyline of Rudraksh that released in 2004, you would actually think this is a brilliant idea. A man lustful for power wants access to a Rudraksh in order to restore the reign of the Asurs in the real world. Set in a contemporary and modern world, will Varun, an embodiment of good, be able to stop Bhuriya and his evil reign? The problem with this film that on paper had a lot of potential was that it was terribly executed, so much so that it became unintentionally funny. A film which was so absurd in its final product that it reached the category of being so bad that it's good. To make things worse, the 2004 era of CGI is embarrassing, and one can't look past its horrible monocolor rendering and mountainous backgrounds that look straight out of the Paint app. A horribly styled evil Sunil Shetty, a hypnotized rat that can possess a hot white scientist, and Sanjay Dutt coming straight out of a week-long trip in Osaka. The most random scientific jargon spilled by Bipasha Basu gets nauseating, and even as a 4th grader, I called BS on the several things she was saying.
Oh my god, he's exploding. 10:33 and 29 seconds. उसकी कुंडलिनी खुल गई है.
Eventually culminating into the most exhausting climax duel, making the film and its attempt at sci-fi an absolute train wreck. Ganpath. Probably the most low-effort attempt at sci-fi was the recently released Ganpath. I said this in my review, but Tiger could have shot this film in his gym that he trains at in Bandra, and it would change nothing about this film. That is the level of detailing that this movie dives deep on regarding a world where so much could have been explored. Where is this world set? How has this society become so advanced and rich that they are betting around MMA fights? For a hungry and poverty-ridden camp that is suffering because of starvation, why the hell is there a hipster restaurant where everyone casually wines and dines? What is the significance of the chips that they inject on the children? Guddu, played by Tiger Shroff, a character born in absolute wealth and abundance, why does he talk like he's from Gangs of Wasipur? The lack of investment in this film becomes even more abundantly clear when you see the songs are basically music videos funded by brands like MyGlam and Magic Moments. The film doesn't care, and that's its biggest problem. You can clearly tell the lack of vision because a presumably dystopian action film with themes of Indian gods is actually a Tiger Shroff MMA film that could have been a YouTube short at best. They promise a Ganpath 2, and we are getting a Baghi 4 next. That's the state of Hindi cinema with sci-fi. Love Story 2050. An attempt at a time travel film seems interesting, but this attempt at launching Harman Baweja was nothing short of a colossal mess. A romance, an unintentionally funny car crash tragedy, and the want for a boyfriend to travel back in time only to realize he's in 2050 Mumbai, where flying cars and 200-story buildings can exist as he looks over Marine Drive. The concoction of a bootleg R2-D2, talking teddy bears, Vikasit Roop redhead Priyanka Chopra's, and a random mask-covered villain made this film from a regular love story to a futuristic hero-villain narrative with far too many distracting elements that took away from an otherwise just simple and sweet love story. That's what's baffling. The first half of the film is just a regular love story across Australia, but the time travel element makes this movie a complete mess. This made me think about the effective time travel or time loop films like the Tamil film Manadu or the Telugu film Oke Oka Jeevatam, that despite their science fiction elements don't let go of their core plot to become a completely different film. At least I guess with Love Story 2050, with Harman Baweja dancing on Milo Na Milo, we momentarily felt he is going to be a stiff competition to Hrithik in the dance department. The filmmaker that really seems to have cracked the code of the science fiction elements being integrated into a film while still holding on to core emotional and familial themes is none other than Rakesh Roshan, who absolutely hit it out of the park with his film Koi Mil Gaya. An alien landing on Earth becomes the guiding light and companion for a mentally stunted Rohit. And this unlikely friendship was not only fascinating from a genre perspective, but was so emotionally engaging from the perspective of Rohit's personal journey. This is something that Rakesh Roshan held on to with Krish, but absolutely lost track of what made this franchise special with the third installment. This balance of a core emotional theme with badass superhero elements is what movies like Drona and Ravan simply could not pull off, but a movie like Mr. India executed to perfection, directed by Shekhar Kapoor. If I wanted to see parallels with other superhero films, I think a Tamil film like Maaveeran and a Malayalam film like Minnal Murali is such a balance, where Maaveeran for me is probably the strongest superhero film in a long time from a stylistic POV. Minnal Murali probably had the most emotionally engaging character motivation from the perspective of the antagonist. I still think about Shibu and his longing for Usha as the song Uyare plays in the background. It was absolutely masterful. So covering these 5 films, we have realized that either the makers faltered completely in execution, did not try at all, or wanted the film to be dumbed down and palatable for everyone, in turn ruining the core theme of what the film intended to be. This is something that I hope the makers in retrospect analyze and understand, that we are more than willing to accept high concept films, especially if their core emotional themes are instrumental in moving the plot forward, rather than misplaced commercial elements utilized as marketing schemes, leading to absolutely disconnecting with the audience, compelling producers to stick to formula, assuming that the Indian public did not want this in the first place.
कौन कहता है कि आसमान में छेद नहीं हो सकता? एक पत्थर तो तबीयत से उछाल के देखो यारो।